Diablo 4, 2023 release date. Yep, it's coming in 2023. I suppose technically everything was coming out on Game Pass within 12 months.
Yes.
Of the 12th of June. So I guess the first half of next year. It would be insane if the first half of next year is Dragonflight and D4. But I guess it could happen. So essentially the big news then, right? Your TLDR, it arrives 2023. It's coming to the old and new consoles as well. It will have cross-play and cross-progression across all of them. I would then presume that if you're one of the people, and there are many people who think the D3 is way more fun on a console because of the controller, well, perhaps with this being cross-play and cross-progression, perhaps you can just plug a controller into your PC and play the game that way. Many people find that to be more fun, and I don't blame them. It is fun. Right. The Necromancer, that is our next class. I talked about some other things. 150 dungeons throughout the campaign and the end game. Massive world bosses that are dealt with by large groups of players. Again, you're having that MMO light layer be present in this game. There's the Fields of Hatred, which are dedicated PvP zones ran by Mephisto, the Lord of Hatred. We've got strongholds, locations that can be liberated from corrupting demons and beasts, and you basically liberate them, they turn into friendly outposts. So the idea is, like, as you just sort of clear through the world in an open-ended manner, you are, freeing a stronghold, getting a side quest, doing a thing, having an adventure. The Tree of Whispers, you can complete contracts to further unlock world objectives and bounties. Nightmare Dungeons, which are basically like, affixes and stuff like that for your endgame experience. And then Paragon Boards, which let you progress down optional paths to continue advancing and customizing your characters beyond max level. And then, of course, the big thing is the monetization. Saying it is strictly a game built for console and PC. Paid content will only include optional cosmetics and full expansions. No shit. For a lot of people then, it's like, if there are paid for cosmetics, I think what we need is PoE-like seasons. If they're going to do that, then I think, we don't need as much of that as PoE has, because it's a free-to-play game wholly supported by microtransactions, but I would certainly be expecting more more chunky, important, just more content and shit seasons than you would normally be getting in a D3 season, because that game's been a bit in maintenance mode.
You can tell people are like really quite concerned about the monetization from the perspective of how they've been reading actual quotes and tweets and words. People are just paying so much attention to the minutiae, and they're like, oh, they're saying anchored around these. The experience is anchored around these optionals. They explicitly don't say only. They don't say we're not going to have that. They've never come out and said there won't be pay to win elements, so people are kind of going, well, why haven't they said that? Which is a little bit unfair, because you have to kind of engage in at least some degree of good faith, I think. But it goes to show just how much damage they've done to themselves. People are like,
that good faith.
Let's look at every single word they say. I suppose it doesn't help that,
after what
Wyatt said, yeah. Like, well, that's fine. I was tactically right all along. Like, good for you.
Yeah, cool. I love how, yes, gear increases combat rating, but so does legendary gems. Happy. There's pre-reg open for beta testing. And look, are there, I would be closer to skill up, I will say. To me, it was a super strong showing. I think the combat looked really awesome. I think the world looked just incredible.
Yeah.
I love the art direction. It's far more D2 than it is D3, which I think is great. But that said, as Carnage here is pointing out, yeah, could be fun, but Immortal concerns.
Yeah, I mean, to go into like a little bit of what I think is the kind of hype stuff about it, just for a second, because this is where I think a lot of people are on this, where it's very easy, and this is kind of the same thing that happened a little bit with Immortal, where like game looks good, and then you get your hands on it, you're like, oh, the presentation's good, oh, the gameplay's fine.
Yeah,
it's the whole product has issues, and they're pretty glaring, etc., etc. I think you know that a bit well by now, I imagine, but I think it's that case of...
I don't want to see any more of that game.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to talk about it more today at all whatsoever. No, sir.
No.
Yeah, but to me, it's like the holistic thing, where I can no longer trust that I will enjoy a game based on individual elements anymore.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's just because with more games coming out, you end up being a little bit more picky overall. but maybe picky is the wrong word. Maybe you have higher standards, or maybe there's more competition for your time and energy and attention. So it is like there is generally the higher bar. But I was looking thinking, okay, man, all that Diablo stuff looks really fun. D4 looks really, really cool. All the weight of every attack, everything the way it looked, all the shadows, all the lighting was really, really beautiful. And I was like, oh, that actually looks like a completely new kind of take on how the atmosphere feels to play. It looks really like what D3 looked like compared to D2 in terms of how far it came along. That's kind of what it felt like again to me. But then I'm just like, yeah, but how are you going to design your endgame? And obviously I'm specifically someone who doesn't really like the treadmill kind of game anymore. But I'm like, do I trust it to have this 35-hour campaign that's really very good in isolation? Or is it all designed to is it designed with the same principles of keep me playing till I get the end game? Because they want me to do hang around with the optional cosmetics. Because that's one of the things that I think that people don't talk about when it comes to an overall story existing, is they now have a reason to keep you playing. Whereas if you buy a game and it doesn't have a store, they do not give. I mean, obviously they'd prefer it if you played more.
Yeah.
But they don't give a shit if you fuck off and don't if you buy a game and play 5 minutes, that's no skin off their nose. Obviously, outside of the fact that you'll be less likely to buy their next product, but that's a long-term thing. But when it comes to the store, they're like, shit, we can't have someone leave. And if that's just we need to make a good game, that's fine. But if it's anything more, it's like, that's a bit. It's like the whole thing is now a different, slightly flavor.
Oh, I get it.
It's a
that
different
whole thing.
taste.
Like every single game is a massive live service that requires so much time that you're like, oh, okay, cool. So I've got my Halo Infinite Battle Pass, my Diablo Immortal Battle Pass, or not Immortal, my Diablo 4 Battle Pass. I've got to get my Overwatch dailies, and you're just like drowning in shit because now there are so many companies making so many games that are so big and have so many things to do. I don't mean things to do as in cool, unique, novel experiences. I mean, boxes to tick. That, I mean, I even remember our experience of playing Destiny, trying to keep up, and then doing literally anything else. Yeah. And it's like, all right, I can totally see how people can main this game and have a great time, but it does make it really hard. Anyway, for someone who's like kind of less in there. I guess like Asmongold just kind of calling out the whole, our who's busy going to make the content for, Zeepla on, but like nice cookies, but you also sell dog meat.
Yeah.
Right, with Immortal.
This was fundamentally just a tweet about infinite content. And that's the thing, when I looked at the Nightmare Dungeons, I'm like, oh. And I get people really quite enjoy that loop about Diablo and stuff. But to me, it's like, where's the novelty? Where's the new content? I would rather do one dungeon 5 or 6 times, get a new dungeon, do it 5 or 6 times, as opposed to here's a pile of stuff, just do it over and over again until your eyes bleed and you can't be bothered, you can't stand up anymore. Because that's kind of a little bit of what I feel like when it comes to a lot of these games. The kind of novelty of experience in there. And that's why I was excited to play Lost Ark for a long time. Because it had that kind of novelty in content that was really apparent and really obvious. As opposed to Number slightly bigger. Number was bigger, but at least it was new content. And after actually watching Asmongold's video on D4 and why not to be excited for it, actually made me kind of want to go play PoE again, because it looks like there's a lot of stuff I never got to play when I want to play for like 43 hours. 40 to 50 hours, I should maybe enunciate it, that would help. But yeah, no.
For most of PoE, you need to put another 0 on.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big ask, but...
Yeah, that's always my problem with PoE. It's like, I want to see what's here, but I just don't have the time. For another thing Dakor has picked out of the internet, we just got, Tally saying that this is... this is going to have a store was already confirmed in a BlizzCon interview. Yeah, that's like it's literally not new information. Ideally, they copy paste PoE seasonal cosmetics, probably stash space. Let's definitely not have stash space. I think 0 mechanic impacting microtransactions is an absolute must. Yeah,
this is the thing that I think people kind of are getting a little bit lost in when it comes to the stash space and stuff like that. Because the window is always sliding of what's acceptable. The way I think to look at it is a free-to-play game is almost by nature of being free-to-play. It is allowed to ask for a bit of money for stuff that's reasonably nice.
Yes.
It is not allowed to ask for an infinite amount of money for stuff that will help you play the game. It's in the same way that I think a League of Legends is very, very reasonable to ask you money for champions or to grind them out. I think that's fairly reasonable. There's maybe times where they could maybe reduce the price down a little bit or something like that. But then the point there is, once you get to too many champions, that starts to be too much money. That's starting to say, oh, you want the full experience? Well, that's going to cost you, how much is it for every champion now? This doesn't include
$9.99 a month.
Well, yeah, cheap enough on Game Pass. Once that rolls out, it's not active yet.
Yeah.
But because I was looking this up today, I think at a base level to just buy all the champions full price, not including sales and bundles, because that makes it hard to calculate. You can't really do that in 5 minutes when you're supposed to be doing other work. But €900
Wow.
to buy every champion, and that's kind of insane. But as far as I'm aware, PoE doesn't ask for that much money for stash space. So it's almost like the same way you would pay £1 or £2 on a mobile game to get an ad-free version.
Yeah.
It's that thing of, hey, we will give you most of this experience, but if you pay us a reasonable amount of money that we would ask for if this was a full price, then we'll kind of make you get the full experience.
Yeah.
I think that's mostly okay, but that's because it's free. If PoE was a $60 game and sold stash base, then people should tell it to go fuck off. But in the same vein, if PoE is a $60 game and sold cosmetics and had free updates for as long as it had, that's kind of okay. But to me, I think to players, it should be all about the initial buy-in of a good experience, and then any post-monetization is worth talking about after that. I think so now.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much it. So it's like the likes of the stash space. That's just only,
Yeah.
Like, so what's the $60 going to get you? I mean, it should get you a fully featured Blizzard game with all features and all access to power and all access to convenience, all access to absolutely everything.
Yep.
And then even after that, a cosmetic store is only acceptable if there are routine free content updates in between the expansions, and those seasons are truly proper. And that's the only thing that's acceptable. Let's hope they do that.
I mean, that's the thing with Overwatch. Overwatch would have been substantially more acceptable loot box wise if it had regular content. But for people who bought loot boxes, they're like, well, obviously you've introduced to like mainstream gaming the concept of a loot box. So I guess the mainstream like core gaming. Obviously they've been around in mobile games and stuff. But you popularized the loot box, and also you didn't give anyone any content. So where'd all that money go? Into the bin. And I think people are, in the long term, people are kind of attuned to that.
Yeah.
People will feel a game's lifeblood kind of beating. Same way OSRS versus the Classic Plus is like, OSRS is alive. And just being alive makes people go, I'll throw it a couple of dollars. This is a good thing. As opposed to, why is my money going into the void? Where's my content? What am I paying for? This is a scam. And I mean, by any other kind of name in any other industry, Overwatch 1 would have been considered a scam. I genuinely think so. If you argue that in court, but it wasn't a video game, if you argue that in court and it was like some other scheme of like some, I don't know, I don't say building society because they're real things.
I mean, it was money for PvP. Like, how's that a scam?
Well, it's more the fact that, the loot box side of it, just continually going in that infinite monetization realm.
Yeah.
Hey, you can give me infinite money and you can get nothing of any value in return, maybe. But it's different. I'm just complaining about the value of cosmetics, I guess, if you look at it the one way. But yeah.
Yeah.